The year was 2098, and Earth had finally become part of something much bigger, a group of alien civilizations working together in peace. After decades of fear and mistrust, humans were now helping to build, repair, and share technology across the stars. It was a strange but exciting time. People were still getting used to the idea that they weren't alone, that there were other intelligent beings out there who could think, talk, and dream just like them. In one quiet corner of space, far from Earth, there was an alien outpost orbiting a massive gas planet called Yelthar. From a distance, the planet looked like a swirling sea of gold and purple storms. The outpost that circled it was supposed to keep communication running between several alien worlds, but something had gone wrong. For months, the signals from that station had been weak and full of strange noise. Engineers from 3 different species had tried to fix it, yet none of them could figure out what was causing the problem. That was when the aliens turned to Earth for help. They wanted a human engineer, someone who could see things differently. It was an honor, but also a risk. The outpost was far from any safe zone, and it was built with technology humans barely understood. When the message reached Earth, several experts were chosen, but none agreed to go. Some were afraid, some didn't want to risk being stranded light years away, and others simply said it wasn't their problem. Then came a quiet volunteer. He wasn't famous or decorated, just a systems engineer who had spent most of his life fixing broken machines. His name was Daniel. People at the station called him the guy who could fix anything. He wasn't looking for fame or adventure, he simply wanted to test himself. Could a single human fix a problem that alien experts couldn't? That question burned inside him. When Daniel received the mission briefing, he noticed something strange. The alien coordinator ended the report with a short warning. Do not access Core Channel 7. There was no explanation, no reason given. He asked about it once, but the translator device went silent and the alien on the other end changed the subject. Daniel decided not to push further. Still, the warning stuck in his head like a tiny splinter. Before leaving, Daniel went through weeks of preparation. He learned about the outpost's design, how to communicate with alien systems, and what each section of the structure looked like. Yet nothing could really prepare him for the feeling of leaving home behind. The ship that carried him to Yelthar wasn't human-made. Its walls were smooth and almost alive, shifting color as it flew through hyperspace. There were no engines roaring, no shaking, only a deep hum that vibrated through his chest. He was the only human on board, surrounded by quiet, tall beings whose eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Most of them didn't talk much. They just nodded or observed him curiously. Daniel spent his time studying the repair plans and reviewing old logs of the outpost. Every log ended the same way, with sudden static as if someone had cut the line mid-sentence. After several days of travel, the ship slowed near the gas giant. Yelthar filled the window with golden clouds and violet storms flashing like lightning. The outpost floated above the planet's ring, spinning gently. It looked small compared to the planet, but up close it was huge. An intricate structure of silver and glass, shaped like a flower with long arms extending toward space. As Daniel stepped out onto the docking platform, he felt lightheaded. The air inside was breathable, though slightly sweet. The corridor shone softly, and the metal under his boots felt warm, almost alive. The alien supervisor who greeted him was tall and calm-spoken. Its face had faint patterns that shifted when it talked, as if emotion showed through light instead of expression. "Welcome, human engineer," it said in a voice that echoed strangely through the translator. "Your task is simple. Restore the communication array and stop the interference. You will have full access except to Core Channel 7. There it was again, the same warning. Daniel nodded, pretending not to notice the tone in its voice. He didn't want to start off with arguments. He was given a small sleeping area, a workstation, and a handful of tools adapted for human use. The first few hours went smoothly. He checked the power lines, inspected the transmission panels, and recalibrated the antennas. Everything seemed fine on the surface, yet the interference kept returning, pulsing like a heartbeat through the system. While watching the signal pattern on his screen, Daniel noticed something strange. The fluctuations weren't random. They repeated in intervals, almost like a pattern, short, long, short, short, long. It reminded him of Morse code, though it was too fast to be human. He called the alien supervisor and showed the data. The alien stared at the pattern for a few moments, then suddenly closed the screen. "Ignore that," it said. "Focus on the hardware." "The noise is meaningless," the response made Daniel uneasy. If it were meaningless, why shut it off so fast? Why look nervous? He wanted to ask, but the alien's tone left no room for discussion. That night, Daniel lay awake in his cabin. The outpost made quiet sounds, soft clicks and low vibrations like the inside of a living creature. Outside his window, Yelthar's storms glowed faintly, sending flashes of gold across the room. He thought about the strange warning again. Do not access Core Channel 7. What was in that section? Why was everyone avoiding it? He turned on his wrist console and reviewed the map of the communication system. The channels were labeled from 1 to 12, but Channel 7 wasn't connected to the others. It looked like a separate line buried deep inside the core of the station. Maybe it was dangerous. Maybe it was damaged, or maybe it was something they didn't want anyone to see. The next morning, Daniel tried to focus on work. He spent hours crawling through narrow tubes, checking energy couplings, adjusting calibration crystals, and replacing worn cables. The aliens moved around quietly, always polite but distant. None of them made small talk. Sometimes when he looked up from his work, he found them watching him, as if trying to understand why a human would volunteer for such an isolated mission. At one point, Daniel's translator glitched and he overheard two aliens speaking in their native tongue. The words didn't translate fully, but he caught fragments like human curiosity and old signal. When he asked what they meant, the aliens quickly changed the topic. By the end of the third day, Daniel managed to bring the communication system back to 70% functionality. Still, the interference persisted. Every few hours, the system would send out the same rhythmic pulses. He saved the data on a personal drive and decided to analyze it privately. Late that night, the curiosity got the better of him. He connected his console directly into the main relay, rerouting the line that was closest to Channel 7. He told himself he was just checking connections, but deep down, he knew he was crossing a line. The moment he accessed the hidden channel, the lights flickered. His screen went dark for a second, then came alive with static and faint sound. He adjusted the filters carefully, expecting alien code or maybe more noise. Instead, a human voice came through. Weak, distant, but unmistakably human. It was a woman's voice, repeating a set of coordinates in a single phrase. "We're still here." Daniel froze. His hands trembled. It couldn't be real. No human mission had ever gone that far, not officially. The message looped again, slightly distorted but clear enough to send chills through his spine. He checked the timestamp embedded in the signal data. The origin date wasn't current. It was more than 60 years old. He quickly saved the file and shut the channel down. The hum of the station returned to normal, but his heart didn't. He sat there in silence, staring at the dark screen, feeling the weight of something he couldn't explain. When he stepped out of the maintenance room, the alien supervisor was standing nearby, almost as if waiting. "Were you working on the primary relays again?" it asked. Daniel nodded carefully. "Just running diagnostics." The alien's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "Do not go beyond your assigned access. Some systems are sensitive." There was something in the way it said sensitive that made Daniel certain it knew exactly what he had done. He said nothing, only returned to his cabin, trying to look calm. That night he listened to the recording again. The voice was faint but full of emotion, a tone that carried both fear and hope. Whoever that person was, they believed someone would eventually hear them. Daniel felt a strange connection, as if that forgotten voice had been waiting all this time for someone to listen. He didn't sleep much. His mind kept circling the same questions. Who sent that message? Where did it come from? Why would the aliens warn him not to access that channel if it was just static? And most of all, what if the person who said "we're still here" had meant it literally? As Yelthar's golden storms turned slowly outside, Daniel decided something quietly in his heart. He wasn't just going to fix the outpost. He was going to find out the truth behind that voice, no matter what the warning said. The next morning, Daniel woke up feeling heavier than usual. It wasn't just the gravity setting of the outpost. It was the thought of that voice he'd heard the night before. "We're still here." Those 3 words echoed in his mind over and over again. It didn't sound like a glitch or a random noise. It sounded like a person alive, or at least once alive, reaching out through time. He kept the recording safe in his wrist console and acted normal as he walked into the main corridor. The alien workers were already moving about quietly, their long fingers tapping holographic panels, their glowing eyes darting toward him once or twice. The air felt thicker that day, as if the whole station knew something had changed. When the alien supervisor approached him, Daniel smiled politely and asked where he could begin his checks for the day. The alien nodded and said, "You will continue testing the transmission nodes. Do not enter the core area without permission." Daniel simply agreed, pretending not to care. Deep inside, he was already planning how to get another look at the restricted channel. The repair bay was quiet, almost too quiet. Machines hummed softly and faint light pulsed along the walls like veins carrying energy. Daniel set his tools aside and ran another diagnostic on the communication lines. Everything looked stable except for one reading, a small, repeating pulse that matched the rhythm from the previous night. It was faint but constant, hiding in the system like a whisper. He decided to trace it more carefully this time. As he followed the signal's path through the network, he noticed something strange. It didn't lead to any main relay. It flowed into a dark zone of the station's map, an area marked with a thin red line. Core Channel 7, restricted access. That was the same one he was told to stay away from. He sat back for a moment, staring at the glowing map. Every logical thought told him to leave it alone, follow the rules, and just finish the repair job. But curiosity isn't something that switches off easily. Humans, after all, are wired to ask why. When lunchtime came, Daniel walked into the cafeteria area where the aliens gathered silently around their nourishment stations. Their food didn't look like food at all, just glowing orbs of light absorbed through touch. He ate his own human meal pack quietly, feeling every glance directed his way. He wasn't sure if they distrusted him or simply found him strange. Afterward, he took a slow walk through the observation corridor. From there, he could see Yelthar below, massive and restless, swirling with lightning deep in its golden clouds. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He wondered how many secrets were buried in those storms, how many lost signals had been swallowed by them over time. Later that day, Daniel was called to inspect an antenna array outside the outpost. He put on the safety suit and stepped into the airlock. The outer doors opened and silence hit him instantly. Space stretched endlessly in every direction, black and glittering. He floated carefully along the surface, his boots magnetized to the metal panels. The antenna looked fine, no physical damage. But when he connected his console to it, the same signal pattern appeared again, the same rhythm, the same pulse. It wasn't random. It was almost deliberate, like someone was still sending something. He stared at the readings for a long moment before saving the data again. As he turned to return inside, he caught a glimpse of his own reflection in the visor. His eyes looked tired, but behind that exhaustion was a spark of determination. He had to know what was really happening here. That night, when the lights dimmed across the station and most of the aliens went into their rest cycle, Daniel sat alone in his cabin. He connected the recordings together, the one from Channel 7 and the one from the antenna. When he compared them, he realized something incredible. The patterns were not just similar. They were identical. It was the same voice, same coordinates repeating from two different sources. The message wasn't just old. It was still active. Daniel rubbed his eyes, hardly believing what he was seeing. That meant someone or something was still transmitting from those coordinates even now. But how could that be possible? Humanity hadn't sent any mission that far into space. Not officially. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft sound outside his door, a faint metallic scrape followed by silence. He turned off his console and waited. After a moment, a gentle knock came. When he opened the door, the alien supervisor was standing there, its eyes glowing dimly in the dark hallway. "You are awake late," it said. Daniel nodded, trying to stay calm. "Couldn't sleep. Too many system reports to review." The alien tilted its head slightly as if analyzing his tone. "Humans are curious species. Sometimes curiosity leads to progress. Sometimes it leads to ruin." There was a long pause before it turned and walked away without another word. Daniel closed the door slowly, his heartbeat loud in his chest. It was clear now. They knew he was searching where he shouldn't. He sat back down and stared at the coordinates again. Whoever had sent that message might have been one of the first humans to ever come this far. What if they'd been forgotten? What if the aliens knew something Earth didn't? The next day, Daniel pretended to work as usual, but his mind was elsewhere. Every time he saw the alien supervisor, he could sense quiet suspicion in the air. The others spoke less when he was nearby. Still, he noticed small details. How the aliens never entered the core chamber, how they avoided even mentioning the older parts of the outpost. It was almost as if part of the station belonged to a past they wanted to erase. In the evening, Daniel finally decided to take a risk. He waited until the rest cycle began again, then left his cabin silently. The corridor lights dimmed to a faint blue glow. He moved carefully through the maintenance tunnels, guided only by the soft hum of the outpost systems. The entrance to the core area was sealed by a translucent door with alien symbols. His wrist console translated them. Access restricted by order of the High Council. There was a small slot beside it for identification codes. He took a deep breath and tried something risky. He rerouted his maintenance clearance through an unused protocol line. It took a few tense seconds, but the door finally hissed open with a low tone. Inside, the air felt colder. The walls shimmered faintly, showing traces of old repairs. In the center of the room stood a massive structure, a communication pillar unlike the newer systems outside. It looked ancient, built from darker metal and covered in marks that didn't match the current alien language. Daniel stepped closer and connected his console. Immediately, data began to pour in. Old logs, corrupted files, and traces of transmissions that hadn't been accessed in decades. As he scrolled through them, he found something that made him stop breathing for a moment. The outpost's construction record. It didn't just list alien engineers. There were human names, too. The record was dated almost a century before official contact between humans and the Coalition. That shouldn't have been possible. The first known meeting between species had happened only 40 years ago. So how could there have been a joint project long before that? He dug deeper into the files, uncovering reports of an early collaboration attempt that ended abruptly. The last entries mentioned signal containment and classified loss of crew. Then everything after that was deleted. The truth was starting to form in his mind. The voice he heard wasn't an accident. It belonged to someone from that lost human crew. A voice that had been echoing through the system for decades, trapped beneath layers of silence. Suddenly, the room lights brightened sharply. Daniel turned around. The alien supervisor was standing in the doorway, its eyes brighter than ever. "You should not be here," it said, voice colder than before. Daniel straightened, his console still glowing in his hand. "Why didn't anyone tell me the truth? Humans were here before working with you, weren't they?" The alien didn't answer immediately. Its hands folded slowly, and the lights in the room pulsed like a heartbeat. Finally, it said, "Some truths were buried to protect both our kinds. The past holds pain that serves no purpose to awaken." Daniel shook his head. "If that voice belongs to someone who was left behind, then it matters. You can't just hide it." The alien stepped closer, towering over him. "You are not meant to know this. Finish your repair and leave. Forget what you found." Daniel met its glowing eyes with quiet defiance. "I can't do that." For a moment, silence filled the air, broken only by the hum of the ancient machine between them. Then the alien turned away slowly. "Be careful, human. The universe remembers more than you think. Sometimes the forgotten should remain forgotten." When the supervisor left, Daniel sat there breathing hard. He looked at the ancient pillar one last time, then carefully disconnected his console. He knew he was walking a thin line between discovery and danger, but he couldn't turn back now. As he stepped out of the core room, he glanced toward the planet below. The golden clouds were still swirling endlessly, lightning flickering deep inside them. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting, hidden, buried, or maybe still alive. He didn't know what he'd uncover next, but one thing was certain. The voice that said, "We're still here," wasn't just a message from the past. It was a call that demanded to be answered. Daniel hardly slept that night. The sound of the alien supervisor's voice kept replaying in his mind, calm, cold, and full of warnings. Some truths were buried to protect both our kinds. He lay in his bunk staring at the dim ceiling lights as they slowly pulsed in rhythm with the outpost systems. The air was quiet except for the faint hum of machines keeping everything alive. Yet his thoughts were far from quiet. He couldn't stop thinking about those old files, the human names listed beside alien ones and the hidden voice repeating, "We're still here." It didn't feel like a ghost story. It felt like history, buried, denied, and locked away. When the station's morning cycle began, Daniel sat up, took a deep breath, and decided something firmly in his heart. He wasn't leaving without finding the truth. If people had once been here, if a human crew had been forgotten, then someone needed to bring their story back to light. He walked into the control room like any other day. The alien workers barely looked up as he entered. They moved with mechanical calmness, each focused on their duties. The supervisor stood near the main console, its glowing eyes scanning streams of data. "Human engineer," it said softly when it noticed him. "You will check the outer relay lines today." Daniel nodded. "Understood." He picked up his toolkit and left, trying to look calm. But inside, he was already planning his next move. He needed to find the source of that signal, the one from Channel 7. The coordinates he had recorded were far beyond the Outpost's normal communication range. He didn't know how to reach them, but maybe the Outpost's long-range transmitter still held the answers. Outside the repair bay, Yelthar's golden storms swirled endlessly below. Lightning flashed through the thick clouds, lighting up the blackness of space like distant fireworks. As Daniel floated near the antenna system, he thought about the first humans who might have come this far. Were they explorers? Scientists? Or just lost souls chasing a dream? When he returned inside, he carried more than just his tools. He brought a decision with him. He was going to access Channel 7 again, no matter what the warning said. That evening, as the station entered its night cycle, Daniel waited until everything was quiet. Most of the alien crew went into rest mode, their quarters dimmed and silent. The corridors were empty, lit only by faint blue lights that stretched like veins across the floor. He walked quietly through the hallways, his steps light, his heart steady. When he reached the communication core again, he paused at the door. Last time, he had forced access through a maintenance route. This time, he went further. He linked his console to the terminal and reactivated Channel 7. The screen flickered, and for a few seconds, only static appeared. Then slowly a pattern began to form, pulses of light, rhythmic and precise. Daniel adjusted the filters, and soon the sound returned. It was the same voice, human, female, soft but strong. "This is Exploration Unit E17, coordinates 54.2 by 16.8, requesting response. We're still here." His pulse raced. The signal wasn't old, it was active. Someone was still transmitting this message. Or maybe, the system was looping a signal from a distant source that had never stopped. Daniel leaned closer to the console. "Who are you?" he whispered, even though he knew she couldn't hear him. He checked the frequency again, and that's when he noticed something strange. The coordinates embedded in the signal were shifting slightly, every few cycles. It was like the sender was moving, or worse, drifting. He saved the new data immediately. But before he could analyze further, the door behind him slid open with a sudden hiss. The alien supervisor stepped inside. Its eyes glowed brighter than ever, washing the room in pale light. "You accessed the forbidden channel again," it said quietly. Daniel turned slowly, hiding his console behind his back. "I had to check the interference source. It's connected to the array. That's part of my job." "You lie," the alien said, its voice sharper now. "You have seen what you were not meant to see." Daniel's heartbeat thudded in his ears. Why hide it? Why pretend nothing happened here? The alien moved closer. "Because some memories bring war, not peace." There was silence for a long moment. Then in a softer voice, the alien added, "The ones you call your own came here before the time of alliance. They were not ready for contact. Mistakes were made. They vanished, and their loss was never spoken of again." Daniel's throat went dry. "You mean they were abandoned?" The alien didn't answer directly. It turned its head slightly, eyes dimming. "The galaxy is vast, human. Many voices are lost to its silence. Some we cannot reach, some we are told not to." It walked toward the exit and stopped at the doorway. "Leave the past where it sleeps. Finish your work, then go home. You are not meant to carry this burden." When the door closed behind it, Daniel sat frozen for several minutes. His hands shook slightly as he replayed the recording again. "We're still here." If those were truly the voices of lost humans, then he couldn't turn away. Whatever happened to them deserved to be known. Over the next few days, Daniel pretended to focus on repairs while secretly studying the coordinates. The signals repeated at fixed intervals, suggesting a stable power source still running somewhere deep in space. He started to build a map of the possible transmission path, using the Outpost's data archives and his own calculations. One evening, as he worked in his cabin, a quiet knock sounded on the door. He opened it cautiously, expecting the supervisor, but instead, it was a younger alien technician. Its eyes glowed faintly blue instead of gold. "You are searching the forbidden channel," the alien said softly. Daniel hesitated. "How do you know?" The alien looked around nervously. "We all know. The supervisor watches you, but not all of us agree with the silence." That surprised him. "You know about the signal?" The alien nodded. "It has been there for generations. The older ones say it is cursed. I say it is forgotten truth." Daniel felt a flicker of hope. "Then help me. I need to trace where it's coming from." The alien hesitated, then handed him a small crystal device. "This is an older data key. It can access the navigation history of the Outpost, the logs that were hidden after the first incident. But you must not let the supervisor see you." Daniel thanked the alien quietly, and they both exchanged a silent nod before the technician disappeared down the corridor. As soon as Daniel inserted the crystal into his console, streams of old navigation data appeared: flight routes, jump coordinates, and something else. A hidden route leading to a system marked only as origin point. The same coordinates as the ones in the signal. His chest tightened. Whoever sent that message was in that system, maybe still there. The next morning, the supervisor confronted him again, its tone unusually calm. "Your work here is nearly complete. Once the final calibration is finished, you will return to Earth." Daniel forced a polite smile. "Understood." Inside, though, his decision was already made. He wasn't going back, not until he found out what happened at the origin point. That night, he stood by the observation window looking out at Yelthar's glowing storms. His reflection in the glass looked almost ghostly. "We're still here," he whispered under his breath. "I'm coming." He didn't know how he'd reach those coordinates yet. He didn't have authority or permission, but he had data, a signal, and a truth no one else dared to face. The alien supervisor might have warned him, but Daniel had already crossed the line between duty and discovery. He wasn't just fixing a broken machine anymore. He was chasing voices from the forgotten edge of human history. The next step would change everything. The Outpost stood quietly under the pale light of two distant suns. The human repair specialist had now spent several days there, surrounded by the strange structures and humming devices left behind by the alien race. The more he worked, the more he realized something about this place didn't fit the official story. It wasn't just an outpost, it was something else entirely. On the fourth morning, he woke up early, long before the station lights came alive. He had started keeping a habit of walking around before the systems booted up. The corridors always seemed to whisper then, as if the walls were remembering old conversations. There was something unsettling about the silence, too controlled, too intentional. He went to check the energy core again. It was buried under layers of metal and strange crystalline panels that seemed to pulse faintly when he got close. His scanner often failed around that area, giving scrambled readings that made no sense. According to his instruments, the power source was not just energy, it was alive. He frowned and tried again, tapping the side of his handheld device. The screen flickered, then suddenly stabilized. A pattern appeared, rhythmic pulses almost like a heartbeat. He stared at it, his breath catching. "That's impossible," he whispered. Machines didn't have heartbeats. Just then, a soft noise came from behind him, a faint metallic clink. He turned sharply, his flashlight cutting through the dim light. Nothing moved, yet the air felt different, heavier somehow. He tried to shake off the feeling and focused on his work, but deep inside he knew something was watching him. That evening, while checking the communication logs, he found encrypted data files hidden behind the regular maintenance reports. He opened one. A message appeared, written in an alien script. As the translation software worked to decode it, words began to form. Unit 47 active. Human presence authorized. Observation continues, his heart raced. Observation? Who was being observed, him or something else? He looked at the console again and a chill ran down his spine. The timestamp on the message was from 2 hours ago. He immediately contacted Earth Command, sending a report marked urgent. The reply came faster than expected, but it wasn't what he hoped for. Continue your assignment. Do not interfere with base protocols, that was all. No questions. No concern. Nothing. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. It was as if they already knew. Maybe they sent him there because they knew. Over the next few days, he began noticing changes in the environment. The outpost lights flickered at random times. Doors opened on their own, and he heard faint murmurs in languages he couldn't understand. Once, while repairing a panel, he found handprints, small, delicate ones, imprinted in the dust. They weren't human. One night, unable to sleep, he walked to the viewing deck. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, 1,000 shimmering dots over a dark ocean. As he stood there, the floor beneath him trembled slightly. He turned, thinking it was another system malfunction, but then the main console lit up on its own. A holographic projection emerged, figures, humanoid but not quite, standing in formation. He froze. The holograms looked like the alien race that had once owned this outpost, but there was something strange about them. Their movements were synchronized, their faces blank, their eyes glowing faintly. They seemed to be watching a single figure in the center of the room, a human. It was him. He stumbled back, confused. The holograms faded, but the image of his own face remained burned in his mind. His hand shook as he touched the console, trying to access the playback, but it was locked. A hidden voice echoed through the speaker system, soft and metallic. You were never sent to repair. You were sent to awaken. He backed away, panic rising in his chest. Awaken what? He shouted. No answer came, only the low hum of machinery. The following day, he decided to investigate the underground section of the outpost, the one sealed off by a heavy gate labeled Restricted. The code to access it wasn't in his clearance, but he had learned enough about alien systems to improvise. After hours of decoding and bypassing security locks, the gate finally opened with a low hiss. A blast of cold air hit his face. Inside was a chamber unlike anything he had seen before. The walls glowed faintly, covered in patterns that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. In the center of the room stood a large capsule, filled with a misty blue liquid. He approached it slowly. Through the haze, he saw a shape, a figure suspended inside. For a long moment, he couldn't tell if it was alien or human. Then as the mist cleared, he saw it clearly. It was human. A person sleeping, perfectly preserved, his knees nearly gave way. Who are you? He whispered, pressing his hand against the glass. The person inside looked peaceful, untouched by time. He noticed something else, a small mark on their wrist, the insignia of Earth Command. Suddenly, the lights dimmed and the hum of the machines rose sharply. The capsule's sensors began to flicker, displaying data in both alien and human languages. It was then he realized this wasn't a tomb. It was a containment chamber. He stepped back, overwhelmed. If there was another human here before him, what happened to them? Why hadn't Earth mentioned it? A faint beeping sound came from the capsule, and a voice echoed softly from a nearby console. It was an audio log, old, damaged, but still clear enough to understand. If you're hearing this, it means I failed to shut it down. The outpost isn't broken, it's alive. It remembers everything. The recording ended abruptly. The room fell silent again except for the faint heartbeat-like pulse from the core below. He stood there for a long time, lost in thought. Every answer only brought more questions. Whatever this outpost truly was, it wasn't meant to be repaired. It was meant to be understood. And now he feared that by fixing it, he might have already set something in motion that couldn't be undone. He walked back to his quarters, his mind racing. The stars outside looked colder than ever. Somewhere deep inside that alien structure, something ancient had awakened, and it was watching him now, waiting for what came next. He could not sleep that night. The air in the outpost felt heavy, filled with quiet tension, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something to happen. The human repair specialist sat in his small room, staring at the flickering lights on the ceiling. His mind kept replaying what he had seen, the capsule, the sleeping human inside, the strange message saying, "You were sent to awaken." He wanted to believe it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a test or an old experiment left behind. Yet deep down he knew this was not a coincidence. Earth Command had sent him here for a reason, but it was not the one they told him. He decided to return to the underground chamber. If there was one place that held answers, it was that room. The corridors were dark when he left his cabin. Only a few emergency lights glowed faintly. painting long shadows across the metallic walls. Every sound echoed: his footsteps, the quiet hum of the systems, the faint whisper of moving air. It felt like walking through the ribs of a sleeping creature. When he reached the sealed gate, it opened easily this time. The locks no longer resisted. It was almost as if the outpost wanted him to return. The moment he stepped inside, the air felt colder. The capsule still stood at the center, glowing softly with that blue mist. He walked closer, eyes fixed on the figure inside. The person looked so peaceful, like they were just dreaming. He placed his hand on the glass again. This time the figure's eyelids twitched. He froze. For a second he thought he imagined it, but then the capsule's control panel lit up with rapid beeps. Streams of alien and human code flashed across the screen. The chamber vibrated slightly, and a faint heartbeat echoed through the floor. He stepped back, afraid he might have triggered something. Then the mist inside the capsule began to thin out, and the person inside moved. A slow, deliberate motion, like someone waking from a long sleep. The glass cracked open with a hiss. Cold vapor spread through the air. The person stepped out, looking weak but alive. Their eyes slowly opened, revealing a faint glow. Neither human nor alien. He didn't know what to say. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two strangers sharing the same air for the first time, and who knew how long. Then the other person spoke, their voice soft but clear. "You shouldn't be here." His throat went dry. "Who are you?" The person looked around the chamber, their gaze distant, almost sad. "Once I was part of a team sent to study this place. That was many years ago, before the Outpost learned how to think." He frowned. "Learned how to think? You mean the system is alive?" They nodded slowly. "Alive, yes, but not in the way we understand life. This station was built by an ancient civilization that tried to merge living consciousness with machines. When they disappeared, the Outpost remained dreaming. We came here to study it, but it studied us instead." A cold shiver ran down his spine. He finally understood why Earth Command had kept everything secret. They must have known something like this existed, a living alien technology that could think, remember, and perhaps even control. The revived human continued. "I was supposed to shut it down, but the system didn't let me. It used my own memories to build what it needed. It's been waiting for someone to return." He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Why me? Why send me?" "Because it needed another key," they said quietly. "Every human carries a unique neural signature. The station used yours to complete what it started long ago." The lights in the chamber flickered again. The humming sound grew louder, almost like a deep rhythmic breath. The walls glowed with moving patterns, and a voice filled the room, calm, steady, and neither male nor female. "Connection established. System awake." Both of them turned to look at the console. The alien symbols began rearranging themselves into human words. Human consciousness detected. "Integrating memories," he shouted. "Stop! Cancel operation!" But the buttons on the console didn't respond. The lights flared brighter, blinding him for a moment. He felt a sharp pressure in his head, like someone trying to dig through his thoughts. Then, just as suddenly, the lights dimmed again. The voice spoke once more, softer now. "Integration complete. Welcome back." He blinked, confused. "What does that mean?" The revived human looked at him sadly. "It means the Outpost has chosen you." He staggered back, shaking his head. "Chosen me for what?" "To continue what it was built for," they whispered. "To link consciousness. To preserve knowledge. It doesn't destroy, it remembers. It keeps pieces of everyone who comes here, including me. Including you." He felt dizzy. Memories that weren't his flashed in his mind. Strange images of alien worlds, unknown stars, beings made of light. He gasped, clutching his head. "I can see it," he murmured. "I can see their history." The other person reached out and held his shoulder. "You're connected now. It won't hurt you, but it will change you. It already has." He looked up, breathing hard. Then what happens next? Before they could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the outpost. The system's voice echoed again, louder, urgent. "External approach detected. Unauthorized human vessel inbound." He ran to the console. A live feed appeared, showing a small Earth ship approaching the outpost. The insignia was clear, Earth Command. "They're here," he said. "They know." The other person nodded. "They always knew. They'll want to erase this place before it spreads." He clenched his fists. "We can't let them destroy it. This isn't just a machine, it's a living memory of another civilization." The other person's expression hardened. Then we must act fast. The system can protect itself, but it needs direction. It listens to you now." He hesitated, feeling the weight of that responsibility. The humming around them grew stronger, almost like the heartbeat of a giant creature waiting for his command. He took a deep breath and said, "Then let's save it." The lights across the outpost surged to life. The alien systems responded instantly, powering up sections that had been dark for centuries. Massive energy shields activated around the base, shimmering with faint blue light. The approaching Earthship slowed down, confused by the sudden energy readings. The human on the outpost watched the monitor, his heart pounding. "We bought some time," he said softly. The revived human looked at him with something like pride. "You've done more than that. You've given it a reason to live again." He didn't reply. He just looked out at the stars through the glass walls of the outpost. The view was endless, breathtaking, and silent. Somewhere deep inside that alien heart of metal and light, he felt a strange peace. For the first time, he wasn't sure if he still served Earth or something far greater. The outpost pulsed again, faint but alive. It was awake now, and so was he. What they would do next, he didn't yet know. But one thing was certain: nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The outpost was no longer quiet. Its walls glowed with soft blue light, humming with a steady rhythm that sounded almost like breathing. The human stood in the control room, staring at the screens as hundreds of alien symbols flickered and shifted, responding to his every thought. It felt strange, powerful, and terrifying all at once. He could sense the outpost reacting to him, as if it could read his emotions, understand his hesitation, and mirror his heartbeat. The other human, the one who had awakened from the capsule, stood beside him, calm and observant. Their eyes held that same faint glow as before. They seemed to understand what he was feeling without needing words. Outside, the Earthship hovered near the outpost, scanning, waiting. The message from Earth Command had already arrived, short and cold. "Deactivate the system immediately, or we will engage." He stared at the message for a long time, his jaw tightening. For years he had followed orders without question, but now, standing inside something alive, something ancient and aware, he realized that Earth Command wasn't always right. They didn't come here to understand. They came to control, to erase what they feared. The outpost's voice echoed softly through the room. "Human directive detected. Shall I comply?" He looked around, uncertain. "No," he said quietly. "Don't comply. Not yet." The voice paused, then responded, "Acknowledged." The light steadied again, like a living thing waiting for direction. The other human watched him closely. "You've made your choice," they said softly. "Now you have to finish it." He turned toward them. "If Earth tries to destroy this place, millions of years of knowledge will vanish. Everything these beings built, everything they tried to preserve, gone forever." "They won't listen to reason," the other replied. "They're afraid of what they don't understand. That's what happened to us before." He clenched his fists. "Then we'll make them understand." He accessed the communication channel and sent a direct message to the Earthship. His voice was steady but filled with conviction. "This outpost is not a threat. It's a living archive of an ancient race. If you destroy it, you'll destroy a part of history that can never be replaced. Stand down." For a moment there was silence. Then a harsh voice replied from the ship. "You're compromised. The outpost has affected your mind. We're here to protect humanity, even from its own mistakes." He sighed. Maybe humanity's biggest mistake is thinking it always needs protection. The transmission cut off. On the radar he saw movement. The Earthship's weapons were powering up. The revived human turned toward him, expression tense. "They're not going to stop." He looked up at the glowing ceiling, the living patterns moving like veins of light. "Then neither will we." The outpost seemed to sense his decision. Energy rippled through the floor, and the alien systems flared to life. Outside, the massive shield brightened, covering the entire structure in a shimmering cocoon. The Earthship fired once, a streak of light against the dark, but the shield absorbed it effortlessly, sending waves of light across the surface like ripples on water. Inside, the vibrations were strong enough to make the floor tremble. The outpost voice spoke again. "Hostile action detected. Initiate defense." He hesitated. He didn't want to hurt anyone. "No weapons," he said firmly. "Just protect us." Defense protocol modified. Energy diversion active. Moments later, the Earthship's engines flickered, then powered down completely. Their systems were offline, disabled, not destroyed. He felt relief wash through him. The revived human smiled faintly. You found balance. You didn't destroy them. You taught the Outpost restraint. He nodded slowly. Violence isn't the answer. Understanding is. The voice of the Outpost spoke again, softer this time. You guide with compassion. Input recorded, he frowned. What does that mean? Adaptation ongoing. Conscious link stabilizing. Suddenly the lights brightened and he felt warmth in his chest. His thoughts blurred for a second, filled with flashes of alien cities, worlds bathed in strange suns, and the quiet peace of a civilization long gone. He saw how they had tried to merge life and machine, not to control, but to survive, to carry their minds beyond death, to ensure their knowledge lived on. He saw their final moment, a dying planet, the last of their kind, building this outpost as a seed of memory. They hoped someone someday would find it and understand. When the vision faded, he was back in the control room, trembling. The other human looked at him in awe. You saw it, didn't you? Their story, he nodded. Yes, they didn't mean to create a weapon. They wanted to live forever through understanding. We called it alien, but it feels human. The revived human smiled faintly. Maybe that's the point. Maybe life, any life, always finds a way to connect. He turned to the console. Outpost, he said softly. Can you send this knowledge back to Earth? Show them the truth. Affirmative. Transmitting data archive through secure channel. The lights pulsed and a faint hum filled the room as streams of data flowed across space. On the radar, the Earthship stopped its approach. Perhaps they were receiving the transmission, seeing what he had seen. Minutes passed. Then a message came through. Transmission received. Standing down, awaiting further instruction, he let out a deep breath, relief flooding his body. The outpost had been spared. The knowledge was safe. For the first time in weeks, the silence felt peaceful. He turned toward the other human. It's over, they smiled gently. No, it's beginning. He tilted his head. What do you mean? The outpost isn't just a memory now. It's alive again, and it's part of you. You can't go back to being who you were. You're connected to it, to them, to everything it remembers. He didn't know what to say. The thought both scared and fascinated him. The outpost voice echoed once more. Human link stable. Awaiting purpose. He thought for a long time before answering. Then our purpose is to protect. To remember. To make sure no one forgets who came before us. Directive accepted, the voice said softly. The lights dimmed to a calm, steady glow. The revived human looked at him one last time. My part here is done. The system no longer needs me. It needs you now. He tried to speak, but they smiled and stepped back. Their form began to shimmer faintly, turning into light. Don't be afraid. I was only a memory it kept alive. Now it's time for me to rest. Within seconds they were gone, just like a dream fading with dawn. He stood alone, feeling the strange peace that followed. The outpost was quiet again, but it wasn't empty. He could still feel their presence and the presence of countless minds within its core. Voices from another age, now sharing space with his own. He walked to the viewing deck. The twin suns were rising, bathing the alien world in soft golden light. The Earthship floated nearby, harmless and silent. He placed his hand on the glass. You're safe now, he whispered. Not sure whether he was talking to the outpost, the aliens, or himself. The outpost's heartbeat-like hum returned, steady and calm. Safe, it repeated softly, almost like a lullaby. He smiled. Good. Far below the surface, the ancient systems continued to hum quietly, their light pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The human who came to repair an alien outpost had done far more than that. He had awakened it, understood it, and become a part of its story. And somewhere, across the endless stars, a new chapter of connection between two civilizations. One human, one long gone, had just begun.